Today for an update from appointed and elected officials around Yamhill County regarding the COVID-19 global pandemic. We have with us Representative Noble, Mary Alice Russell, Superintendent from the McMiddle School District, Mayor Beth Wojtowski from Dayton, Mayor Rick Rogers from the City of Newburgh, and Mayor Scott Hill from the City of McMinnville. And what I'd love is to hear the thoughts you want to share with the members of your community about coronavirus and the public health response, and any other thoughts you want to share to give people a sense of what's happening right now and what you're working on. And I would love to have Representative Noble start if he is willing.
I'd be happy to start. This is a difficult time for a lot of people right now, and we have a lot of things, a lot of moving parts right now. I've been a part of, and I know each one of the panelists here have been a part of conference calls. I've been a part of conference calls at least 2 or 3 a day for the last couple of weeks. It makes it really difficult to go out and do some yard work in this beautiful weather. But I think there's some things we need to just remind ourselves. And you know, as difficult as this is, and it's hard to believe really that this is happening, we need to take measures to continue to keep ourselves apart. We use the term social distancing. I saw someone post on Facebook earlier today. It's really physical distancing, and social interaction is important. We need to continue the social interaction with family and friends, neighbors, and community, but we need to stay physically apart the best we can right now. And that's difficult because that brings another set of hardship on us. And I know the legislature is working on dealing with some of these hardships. We have healthcare issues, economic issues. I know there are people that are dealing with some potentially unemployment issues, and then some small businesses that are concerned about whether or not they'll weather the storm. So it's important that over the coming weeks, you let me know how we can be helpful. It's likely that we will have a special session in the legislature to deal specifically with some of the needs that the state has regarding the COVID-19 virus. And then in not just the healthcare issues, but as I mentioned, the economic issues and some of the concern out there. There are a lot of resources out there if you are an employee or if you are an employer. There's the Oregon State Chamber of Commerce resource guide that has a lot of information, the Small Business Administration guidance, and the Small Business Administration is available to assist those small businesses with accessing federal resources. There are a number of loan resources out there. Workshare Oregon is another one that allows employers to leverage partial unemployment insurance benefits so that they don't necessarily have to lay people off just to continue and make it through this situation. The Employment Department is another one for the state of Oregon. It's a great resource for information for employers and employees. And then the Business Oregon interim guidance for businesses. Specifically, if you're a business, Business Oregon does a lot of work looking into for assistance in the event of a local, regional, or economic issues dealing with this COVID disaster. It seems some people are kind of split in two groups. Some people are taking the social distancing or physical distancing seriously, and some aren't. I think it's important that we understand the way this is being carried out. There are no vaccinations right now. They're being tested. There are no take. And really our best line of defense is to stop as best we can the transmission of this virus. I would urge you to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, and then to take care of your community. Call on neighbors, check and make sure people have everything they need and work together. Fear can be very paralyzing. And this is easy to become very a fearful time. But the reality is we need to be objective. We need to be aware of the risk, and we need to take the steps to mitigate it as best we can and not let fear rule us as we navigate through this. Again, if you have any concerns, anything that you need to share, anything I can address, please contact me. You can find me on the state directory. You can find me on the web. And I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Noble. I really appreciate hearing from you. I should add that Senator Brian Boquist, the state senator from District 12, was unable to join us, though he wanted to, because he just got called away to the coronavirus economic response committee, I think, Representative Noble, I think that's what it's called. So he's at that right now, and I'm very glad that we have a legislator from our county on that committee. So I'm very glad to hear that. And I thanked him for his 18-hour days. So what I'd love next is to hear from Mary Alice Russell as superintendent of the largest school district in the county. And then we'll go through mayors if that sounds good.
Great. Well, happy to participate in this call and video, and I hope everybody stays healthy. And like all of you, let's wash our hands, wash our hands, wash our hands, and keep that 6-foot social distance. The school districts in Yamhill County have a weekly meeting. We've been meeting for the past 3 weeks, even prior to the closures happening with county health officials. That happens every Thursday afternoon, and all of the county superintendents come together to talk about plans. Many of the things I talk about is true throughout the county. For example, the meals that we're delivering to students on a daily basis, and we began that process immediately upon the first day of closure, and we'll continue that through we'll continue that through spring break. And what we would ask is that parents and community members work really hard on those children that they're encouraging to get their meals, that kids keep 6 feet social distance. So there's a little excitement sometimes when the lunch bus comes around to local bus stops, but if kids can make sure to keep their space as well as they're waiting their turn for their lunch. We're of course advocating that parents who can do the drive up. So it's just like you would at McDonald's or Wendy's, drive through when we provide the meal. And we do it both at the school site as well as at bus locations. One of the things that we were able to do today is to go through and take a look at all the advanced materials that we purchased, and we'll be making about 1,300 face masks available to Yamhill County beginning on Monday to County Health to help support the mask needs that they have, as well as several dozen of disposable gloves, both the nitrile and the latex form. So we'll be making those available to the county as well to help towards that end. We just announced today on our website that we'll be checking out Chromebooks to our students. All school districts in the county will be working hard at providing supplemental educational opportunities for students while they're home. Each district will do it in a different way. We're looking at a combination of online and packet resources for students, but again, we're wanting to see who needs a device, and we're checking out that Chromebook to those students who need it. We also have available hotspots, and so hotspots are a tool that connects to your computer, and if your household does not have Wi-Fi access, it'll allow students to access the internet in that way. So we're working very hard with our educators, with our families to keep the communication up. I think something on everyone's mind is what happens to the seniors. Will the seniors have an opportunity to graduate this year? And yes, they will, throughout the state, in McMinnville specifically, and of course, Yamhill County. I've been on several calls regarding modifications of graduation requirements. On Monday, we'll see that final list come out. And the modification of graduation requirements is being done in tandem with the Office of Higher Education, so that as these seniors leave our schools, they'll be accepted into their post-secondary programs at the college level. So we won't miss a step for our seniors. It'll just be a different path that they'll be going down to successfully accomplish their graduation. But that's top on everybody's mind. And again, we'll get those details out on Monday. We're trying to get a lot of information out regarding, again, the social distancing, the stay home, stay safe kind of messages, and of course, providing the kind of staffing needs that we need in order to feed, serve the community, provide educational opportunities for students, as well as some other new services that may be coming up in the weeks ahead.
Great, thank you very much. I was so impressed by how quickly all the school districts got meal deliveries going. I'm just tremendously grateful to you for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm grateful to all of you and everyone in the county and the city and the various communities that are working so hard towards the same end and the same goal to keep everybody safe. So thank you.
Yeah. And you have a double part of that. You have to keep them safe, but you also are charged with educating them. And
that's so right.
I really appreciate that level of creativity that you're taking to it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that Mayor Rake from Carlton is not having a successful time connecting, but he wanted to thank all of the Carlton residents for how seriously they've taken this outbreak and everything that they've done to help others in their community. So that was his one thought he really wanted to get out there. Next, let's go to mayors. And can we start with smaller city mayors, like Mayor Witowski, with you?
Sure.
I know you've said this a lot, but I'd love to hear from you right now.
Sure. Thanks everybody for being willing to participate in a video like this and kind of trying something new for a little bit of a regional leadership discussion. I was really hoping the webinar feature was going to work out so we could live stream in the future if I can get that functioning correctly. I would love to try to do that again because as we're streaming, it would allow for other people to chime in and ask questions.
Yeah.
Of panelists so we could really get some feedback from constituents around the county, which I think would be really valuable in this time, and for them to get a live and immediate response from people who are involved in all of these critical discussions. I know we talked a little bit earlier about all the conference calls. I know I'm on 2, 3, 4, 5 calls a day, plus constantly responding to emails. And I know we're all really busy, and so we're all getting those answers and information, and some of our constituents are having a harder time accessing that. So I think if I can get that going, I'd really like to. The city of Dayton has obviously taken a lot of measures that a lot of other cities have taken. We declared a state of emergency really early last Friday. I think we might have been the second city in the state maybe to declare. So after being up until about 1 in the morning, reading all the Oregon Emergency Operations Manuals and guides and related statutes, we got right on that. I've been really, really proud of our staff response. I declared that emergency on Friday. I was contacted by the food bank and we had a checkout the next day to sponsor our food pantry, make sure that they had shelf-stable proteins. Today, my city manager and I were discussing trying to create a little bit of a grant fund, possibly to help with utilities, operation expenses, employee expenses. We're not sure where we're going with it yet, but that would be available for our downtown businesses because we really don't want to lose anybody, not only for economic reason, but they're all our neighbors and our friends, and we love them dearly. And not even in just small cities, but I'm sure Scott feels the same way about McMinnville and Rick about Newburgh. You know your business owners, and you don't want to see anybody hurting. So, we are looking at some financial ways to help people cover their costs. Additionally, I've tried to work on messaging. I've been really active on social media. I would encourage all of you, if you aren't engaging in the conversation there, where people can share your comments. So if they miss them immediately, they might see them from a friend. That's a really powerful tool. And I've also been using some video, both in English and in Spanish, to get messages out. My message to the community has been really similar to what Mary Alice just shared. Of course, wash your hands, stay safe. Make sure you're taking all of the precautions that you should, that are recommended by public health, by the CDC, by the OHA. We're all hearing the same things. Social distancing is so, so critical at this point. I've been really proud, especially of how our businesses have responded to the social distancing. Before there were orders to discontinue tableside service, I think all but maybe one of our restaurants had already started offering curbside and delivery, even though they didn't have any history of curbside or delivery. They developed it just immediately and stepped up into that. I know a couple are delivering well outside of the city, not charging any delivery fees, just because they care about feeding folks who need that help. I think that's been really incredible. Our communities come together to pack emergency food boxes at that food pantry, and those are also being delivered. So that's been really great. I know, we've really tried to have enough messaging to let people know, you can go outside as long as you're observing distance space. And, interestingly, yesterday I took my kids out for a walk, and I thought it was so funny, or sad maybe, that it took a pandemic for people to put their phones away and go out on a walk with their families. But there were an awful lot of people who, waved from a distance, didn't get real close, but were out for a walk because they weren't at work, they weren't at stores, they weren't engaging in other activities. And so they had their dogs, their kids, on a bike, whatever. And I actually thought that was kind of a little moment of beauty in a lot of what's obviously not very beautiful and can be even scary. So that's a little bit of what's going on in Dayton. I think our residents are responding pretty well. I think people, for the most part, are taking the seriousness of this to heart, and behaving appropriately and responsibly to protect our most vulnerable citizens. And I hope to see that tighten up. I know my message to the community through the weekend is really going to be focused on the increased measures that are likely to come through the governor's order if we are not voluntarily engaging in social distancing as we should be. And I think that my community would prefer to be able to do that at a volunteer level, and rather than have things kind of micromanaged. So I'm really hoping people can adhere to the guidelines so that we don't have to have more orders handed down.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much. I mean, the things that your city has said and taken action on has really been shows a lot of leadership for me, and that I'm like, okay, oh, we can do that. We can do that thing and that thing. So I really appreciate it, especially things like the grant program. So, but I will save that for my comments. But thank you very much, Mayor. Mayor Rogers, would you be willing to tell us what's happening in Newburgh these days and what you want residents of Newburgh to know right now?
Sure, absolutely. Casey, thank you, and thank you to all the panelists. I'm glad to be here, and unfortunately under these circumstances, but nonetheless, and, as much as Beth said, we've done much of the same. Actually, our city manager, Dan Weinheimer, who's actually been with us now for about 2 weeks. So welcome, Dan. We had decided that only essential staff will be working for the city. Everyone else will be working remotely. And a lot of the same restrictions that we had mentioned earlier. One of the things we did last week, and we'll continue doing this, is our major community partners are in constant contact. We're going to have a weekly call. So that includes the school district, the hospital, major nonprofits, major employers, Parks and Rec, et cetera, to really try to roll out and anticipate where needs might be met. One of the best things, as Beth alluded to, that we found is that these organizations are hearing from volunteers now that people in Newburgh are willing to step up and help as needed, and just sort of need to be directed to that. The one thing I would say, and I might stress this a little more, I guess, and maybe in anticipation of the governor's statement and our call tomorrow, but I think that staying at home is solid advice. And as I said, the city has taken that posture that only essential employees will be reporting to City Hall. So anyway, I have actually somewhat of a prepared statement that I'll read, if that's all right with you. Sure. So it's late Saturday afternoon, March 21st, and we've begun to see the direct impact of COVID-19 in our community. I'm speaking today from a place I, my wife, dog, and 2 cats will get to know quite well in the coming weeks, our living room. I strongly encourage, even urge, you and your loved ones to do the same. Stay home except for essential travel. That doesn't mean taking a walk with your dog and all, but limit the essential travel. Local health officials expect this pandemic to peak in mid to late April. The best way to stop the spread is to limit travel and social contact. In addition, as Mary Alice mentioned, your hands, wash them often, elbow, cough into it, face, don't touch it, space, keep a safe distance, and home, stay if you can. We owe these actions to the most at risk among us. We need to do this to defeat the pandemic. We owe this to our first responders and healthcare workers. So be safe, be well, be home, and thank you. And we'll get through this. It's just going to be time.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Those are good words. I think it's really important to remember, and it's something for me to remember, that I'm not doing it for me or for my kids, but for everybody who I might actually contact just in the course of moving about the world. So though I want to be out walking the streets of downtown McMinnville and downtown Newburgh and downtown Dayton and reassuring people, it's also so much more important to stay and avoid contacting other people. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It looks like we have Mayor Cape from Amity on, and I think he's just on audio, so I'm going to see if he is able to. Mayor Wojtowski, can you unmute him and we'll see? Mayor Cape, are you there?
I am here.
Would you like to share any thoughts for the residents of Amity?
Yeah, we're I guess taking a little slightly different approach. We're we have closed our library as our librarians are in the at-risk category. And other than that, we've kept all of our other services open. We have, kind of closed the door to City Hall and trying to do less face-to-face work. But other than that, trying to keep normal operations at this point. We do have a upcoming executive session for our city council next week, and so trying to meet those needs while at the same time keeping the social distance and letting our counselors feel safe to attend to a rather urgent and important matter. And we have not declared a state of emergency at this point. Trying to take that kind of day by day and trying to decide as things change and evolve if we need to make that step. I take that as something that I don't want to do unless we really do get in that point. Right now there's no cases reported in Amity, so we're just trying to encourage everybody. We pushed out a lot of information that comes from the federal government, state government, all the same stuff, about social distancing and where to get assistance and resources and things of that nature. So I think that's really where we're at this point. Just keep monitoring stuff, keep pushing out the positive and correct information that comes from CDC and Oregon Health, and encouraging people to make good, smart decisions. Oh, hey, there I am.
Hey.
So I stepped outside to do this. It's a beautiful day out here. So
apparently all I had to do was send you a new video link.
oh, hey, maybe Casey will come to Amity now, since you can see how beautiful it is out here.
Oh my gosh. I was supposed to be at Common Cup and then that whole coronavirus thing.
Yeah.
Actually, Representative Noble and I were supposed to be at Common Cup, in fact.
We were.
Yeah.
Yes, we were.
Well, thank you. Your environs are a lot nicer than mine right now. So, but I had to have the mood lighting and all that. And the quiet. Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I really appreciate hearing your voice for what the residents of Amity can do and should be doing right now. So I appreciate it. Mayor Hill, City of McMinnville, tell us, what do you want the residents of McMinnville to know about what you're working on? Hi, Lisa. And what information they really need to know right now.
Thank you, Commissioner, and fellow mayors on the line. Again, I think this is a real critical time that we're able to have these kinds of discussions and assuring people that we've not shut our doors per se. As many communities, our city hall, our library, our aquatic center, our senior center, and our community center are not open for the public, but we do have people that are connected. And so phone calls, you will get immediate response. If you have needs, you can call on the phone. Emails are being monitored as if we were in contact, but we are taking very seriously the distancing and not having groups of people come together, especially our senior center, which is a vulnerable grouping of individuals that was shut down very early. We did declare a state of emergency last, I think it was Monday at 1 o'clock. The things that I would share with the group are exactly what my peers across the county have said. The distancing, staying at home, being with family, as best you can, enjoy that time with family. My wife and I spent the day out in the yard and we didn't encroach on anyone, but it's amazing how many people stopped in their car and pulled over. They didn't get out. We talked. We're connecting with our neighbors. I think we talked to every neighbor in our cul-de-sac today as we were working in the yard. One thing that we've done in our home, just to remind us, is as you come into the garage, into the house, I put up a big sign that says, wash your hands now. We forget to do that. You know, we forget to do that. And so it's big, it's there. And so we walk right into the bathroom. We wash our hands every time we go outside. A couple of other things I think are very critical. As my peers have said, we're on numerous phone calls with state, League of Oregon Cities, county, our partners. So we're getting a lot of good information. In McMinnville, if you want to know the most updated information, go to our website, and COVID-19 will tell you where all the things that we receive. As mayor, and as other mayors, we've received numerous emails on a daily basis from our partners, from the chamber, from MEDP, and then our state and regional partners out there. All of those things that are of importance are going on the website. It's very important to know to look at where you're getting information. There's a lot of misinformation out there that would scare many of our people, but it's the experts at the national, the state, the regional, county, and city areas that is the information that we need to address. I think I'd update the residents of McMinnville from McMinnville Water and Light. Your water is not acceptable for transmitting any disease. It is clear, it is good, it's good water, and we've taken steps to make sure that there's not going to be anything that would stand in the way of us having water and electricity in McMinnville. McMinnville Water and Light have closed their doors also to not have groupings of people, but we are there. We can talk to you. We've last Tuesday we had a commission meeting. We're not going to disconnect anyone during this time of crisis as we go through that. Matter of fact, we doubled the amount of money that we're willing to give to families that need assistance to pay their bill. So those are some of the things that are happening at McMinnville Water and Light. I talked to the fire chief yesterday. We're in contact with the hospital and making sure that from an emergency room standpoint, we've talked to the leadership there. Our fire department, our police department have truly geared up, and they're doing everything within their protocols to be safe and making sure that they're able to get out and help those that are in need. Outside of that, I just say that in these times, know that many individuals are working very hard to bring our communities together. And so follow that which is out there, follow it to the letter of the law, because that's the thing that's going to stop the spread. Thanks, Casey, and my peers.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, I've got a few things from the county perspective as well that I'm going to run through. But it's nice not feeling like I'm rushed. I think that some of the mayors here were on the phone call with the governor last Sunday night, and it felt like, oh, we have to rush to get through all of this. So I'm reminded that I don't need to rush, right? So I'm going to go over a few things that are county specific. Right now, to find out more about which county offices are closed, you can go to the county's main homepage, and there will be a list that's constantly being updated, including with, if you click through to each department, you'll find out what procedures that department is taking right now. Some of the departments are totally closed to the public, but are still available by phone or by email. Some of the departments are statutorily required to be open, and so they are open to the public. The clerk's office has to be open, but there's a sign out in front that says, only come in here if you're really need to be here, and only come in if you're not sick. And so each department, because their unique needs, are kind of taking it differently, but with some strong leadership from our county administrator, which I've been really appreciating. And this morning at 9 o'clock, when I was in town dropping off bins at Public Health, Our county administrator's truck was at the office, so he's putting in some long time on it, just like all of you are. One thing that the county, I am asking the county to consider is taking our lottery dollars, our economic development dollars, and immediately putting those to use through our economic development contractor and through Jody Christensen at Regional Solutions and the Chambers of Commerce to identify businesses that need a small grant in order to either stay in business or cover their costs during the short window when they really need it in order to be ready to go for after the pandemic passes by. And again, as all the mayors said, and as Representative Noble and Mary Alice said, it's the better we are at making our own decisions as individuals to follow the advice and guidance, the faster it will pass by. So I want to work on that. That'll happen this week, ideally. We have some other reserve funds that we can put to use in a similar manner. So I'm going to be listening to what Mayor Witowski is doing in the city of Dayton, and a couple of other cities are doing that as well. I know the city of Beaverton has done a similar program for their businesses where it's just like a cash grant right away to stay in business. One thing I do want to note is that as testing capacity increases, our county will see more positive tests. And that's just simply a reflection of the viral pool that's in the county. It doesn't indicate that there's an increase in the number of positive cases. It's just reflecting the reality that we're already in right now. So just a note, so you don't, that stay calm during that, right? One thing that our HHS director and the public health officer really wants to emphasize is that public health releases information, as much information as is needed in order to protect the community when there's a positive case. That the information releases specifically to protect the community, and different situations and different diseases call for varying levels of information to share. So when we only hear an age range and we don't hear where or what they do or what spaces they're in, it's because public health knows they're tracing the contacts and they're working with them to make sure that we are all safe. It's not a withholding of information, it's releasing information to keep us safe. I think that's an important point. But along the lines of public health, if you have personal protective equipment, if you have masks, if you have protective gowns, if you have gloves, I think Mary Alice, you had mentioned something about this too. At 412 Northeast Ford Street in McMinnville is the public health offices, a public health building. And right now there's some blue bins out in front that normally hold things like lettuce, but they're very clean now. And people can drop them off there over the weekend in the blue bins. And during the week, and they'll be bringing them in because there are folks there 24/7 right now. But during open business hours, which are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, folks can go in and just drop them off at the front desk. And it sounds kind of wild that public health is asking for you to donate gloves, but we need to make sure that our frontline providers, so our first responders, firefighters, police, patrol deputies, nurses and doctors, emergency room staff have the supplies they need in order to stay safe, because they really can't do this work without personal protective equipment. So we want to make sure, as all of you have emphasized, stay home as much as possible. But also connect, as Representative Noble, I think, was the one who really emphasized this, connect with your neighbors and your family and your friends. This is a time that's so important to make those connections and build them. Like Mayor Hill was talking about, and Mayor Witowski, being out in the world is great, just be really careful and make those connections. We were at a park along the river this morning, which is why I had a pause in emails. And there were a lot of people out there keeping their distance, but also being really grateful for the weather that we've been having. So I'm very grateful for that. One thing I do want to address is that, as I think maybe Mayor Hill, maybe Mayor Rogers was talking about, I encounter a lot of misinformation out there, including full-on scams with correct letterhead and stories. And so what I've been asking people to do is either rely upon the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and their website is coronavirus.gov. So it's a super simple one, coronavirus.gov, or the Oregon Health Authority. And if it doesn't come from the Oregon Health Authority or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, I actually say, just don't actually rely upon it. You can listen to it, just don't rely upon it. And that's because even if you see a study, like I was reading a study yesterday on medRxiv, that's not actually public health advice. So I hear regularly, oh, my friend in China, or I know this professor who's stuck in Italy. All of those stories may be true. They may be totally accurate. The advice in them is not a public health response. It's not appropriate to trust it as public health advice, even if it is information that's accurate. It's called an anecdote, you know? And so that's something that I try to remember all the time, and I'd love people in the county to remember. Perhaps finally, I just want to acknowledge that we're in a time when, as all of the mayors and superintendent and representative know, our government can have a response that's totally appropriate and accurate and worthy and effective. But if we as individuals don't take the actions on our own and be responsible, the government response is going to be completely irrelevant. Or as I think Mayor Witoski said, the government response will have to escalate because we're not following the advice that's been presented to us. And so I think it's a really important opportunity for me at least, to consider the balancing, I'd like to consider my hands, the balancing of government and individual responsibility. I really appreciate thinking about that right now, is that we can, as government officials, can only do so much before it comes back to all of us as the people. So I think that we are going to get through this. And I know that the residents of Yamhill County are really amazing people. And I really appreciate all of them for being patient and for listening to each other and for practicing kindness every single day. But remember, the most vulnerable are the ones who are most at risk. And they're also the ones who need you to call and to write. I'm left-handed, so it looks like I'm right-handed, and connect with them. Okay, thank you very much. Any parting thoughts besides thanks to Mayor Witoski for setting us all up?
Casey, if you don't mind,
Please.
thank you for helping to set this. Is that all right? If you don't mind, I want to thank you, but I want to thank each of the mayors and Superintendent Russell as well, because you're dealing with smaller communities and in a much more personal way than a state representative would. If there's anything I can do to help any of you, please let me know, because the groups you deal with, it's a much more of an enclosed community. Dr. Russell, thank you so much for the food and what the school district's doing there. And I know each one of your communities takes on a different flavor, which is really important. So I would offer my services to you. I think you know that, but just to reiterate that. And well, absolutely, if I find out more as we get into this, we'll keep you in the loop as well.
Yeah, Mayor Noble, or Representative Noble, I just like to say thank you for all of your good works, not just with this, but for how you've represented us in the legislature. And I think, we are a better place because of it. So thank you. And thank you for all of you, and what you all are doing. One thing, Casey, I would like to say, and Beth, I'm sure would be interested too, as we go forward with your idea on the economic recovery sort of package, please let us know, because we've been talking about it as well. And if we can leverage and target the money for the businesses locally, please let us know, because I think we've got a lot of desire to help that way as well.
Absolutely. And I should have mentioned too that businesses, PGE also committed to not disconnecting, just like Mac Water and Light and the city of Dayton and the city of Newburgh. And so it's important also to remember that with food banks and all these companies, everybody's working on it. And the smallest ones are gonna need it more. but the bigger ones are going to need, you know, a lot more. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Mayor Hill, did you have? Oh,
Go ahead.
I think the superintendent, do you want to go for it?
Okay, thank you. I just want to say in closing, first of all, Casey, thanks for getting us all together. The more information we can get out to our community at large, the better. To parents, I'd like to remind parents to be watching district websites, no matter the district that your child attends. Also, social media, we send a lot of things out via Facebook and other mechanisms as well. And think about your children, if you're home and you have access to video services, which of course, if you don't and you get the Chromebooks from us, you will, but you know, there's the History Channel, there's Oregon Public Broadcasting Channel, there are these educational programs that students can watch as well, as in addition to the kinds of activities you just described you did with your family, Casey, out in the air, 6 feet apart, getting some exercise. But again, schools beginning after spring break will be getting that supplemental educational opportunities to students out there. So stay tuned on that. And to our whole community, and particularly all of us in leadership, please also keep in mind that within Yamhill County, we have a high level of poverty, and many of those individuals may not have access to even this kind of video recording, and we need to be looking after them. And those of you that are thinking about getting funding and resources to families, that's super. Additionally, I would recommend that you really think about how do you get the Spanish language Latino voices heard, which is the largest minority population we have in our Yamhill community, and making sure that we're reaching out to everybody. I know that's what people are working on, and I just think we have to keep reminding that every day. But thank you. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for ending on that note about Spanish language being really, really important. I'd like to point out that Mayor Wojtowski's, well, the city of Dayton, the homepage has a great English and Spanish language versions of Think of Your explanation of what's happening right now.
Yeah,
and
of
those
course,
are very popular.
It's a week old, so it's, you know, the situation has changed a little bit. I tried to get that out pretty early to get some communication. We've had a lot of written communication since, and I do have a couple Spanish-speaking counselors on our city council, which aids tremendously in our ability to get things out really quickly in 2 languages. I also want to encourage all of us as leaders just to remember that, you know, our choice in a situation like this is either to be proactive or reactive. I know that we declared a state of emergency earlier than other cities. It didn't feel like an emergency when we did so, but I felt it could. There's not a lot of downside to taking some of those steps. And it does provide some opportunity and flexibility. So for us, we did use some of that budgetary flexibility, for example, right away. We also, of course, with some of our operations, but it can also do things like suspend procurement processes so that you can move quickly if you need a new contract, and it can really just help you pivot when you need to. So I would just encourage everybody to keep that in mind, that, you know, if you wait until it feels like an emergency, it might be too late to stop it from becoming a serious one. So, you know, we should really try to be proactive instead of reactive in situations like this for the protection of our communities.
Amen. And thank you so much to all of you for taking care of your communities and for really representing them. And be safe out there, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.